Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Future of Retreading and Recycling Conference. We have a mixed selection of speakers and panel discussions today covering subjects from the tyre recycling and the tyre retreading sector. So we hope you find what we have on offer today interesting and valuable. Before we start, just several points I'd like to make. The first things, if you need a simultaneous translation, that is possible. There is a barcode, a QR code outside by the entrance, and you can download simultaneous translation on the app. For the AZuR app. That's the first thing. The second thing is my son Richard, who's standing at the back there. He'll be going around shortly trying to scan your badges so we can have a record of who's here. So if you see somebody leaning over you, then that is who it is. So please, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to scan your badges. What we're going to do is we have the conference lasts from 2 until 5. The running order is I will start with an introduction, and then we will have a panel discussion on the global retreading industry. That will last 45 minutes or so. And then we have 5 presentations, each of 20 minutes each. And at the end of each presentation, I will allow a few minutes for questions, and somebody will go around with a handheld mic to take those questions. That is time permitting, of course. If we run short, we may not have time, and if that is the case, but please feel free to send your questions in to us at info@retreadingbusiness.com, and then we'll forward you the questions that you have to the speakers and send you an answer. But hopefully we will have enough time for that. At 5 o'clock, we then have a break while we change the room around for the Recircle Awards ceremony, and at 5:30 we then have the Recircle Awards ceremony. So please, we invite all of those of you who are here for the conference today to stay on for the ceremony to celebrate the achievements of the best in tyre retreading and tyre recycling. Okay, just one final thing, just a note about recording here. This event will be recorded on video. However, the event is copyrighted, so I would ask you please to respect it. You're very welcome to take photographs, but please don't take any video recording. If you need video recording, please come and see us afterwards. There are packages available. There's leaflets on seats with packages available. Please come and see us after, or send us an email, and we can sort you out. Okay, so let's begin with a short address in Italian by the president of IARP, Stefano Carloni. Prego.
Grazie. Buongiorno a tutti, grazie per la vostra presenza qui oggi e grazie a David Wilson per aver riportato qui ad Autopromotech questo convegno internazionale dedicato all'industria della ricostruzione e al riciclo dei pneumatici, che anche quest'anno si affianca alla cerimonia di premiazione dei Recircle Award. E sono comunque 2 momenti molto importanti per tenere insieme e per dare unità all'ampio comparto della ricostruzione e del riciclo dei pneumatici e per sensibilizzare tutti, insomma, sull'importanza che queste industrie hanno per la sostenibilità ambientale. Avete notato che quest'anno, diciamo, Autopromotech fa i suoi primi 60 anni. Quindi vuol dire che nel 1965 AIRP inventò una fiera che si chiamava Salone Attrezzature per la ricostruzione dei pneumatici, alla quale poi nel tempo si affiancarono anche le attrezzature d'officina e infatti si chiamò SARP-SIAC. Io ricordo, quindi parliamo del 65, di aver fatto la mia prima fiera a 10 anni con mio padre nel 1969. Erano momenti oggettivamente molto molto particolari, molto interessanti, pieni di speranze, pieni di prospettive e molto diversi da quelli che stiamo vivendo adesso. Diciamo c'era grande dinamismo, grande insomma, voglia di fare, e quindi era un momento di grande allargamento della nostra industria. Quindi siamo felici di dire che questo modello che abbiamo fatto tanti anni fa continua a funzionare. D'altra parte devo anche dire, perché sono abituato, a chi mi conosce, insomma, a dire la verità in maniera molto chiara, che per la ricostruzione oggettivamente non è un bel momento. Non è un bel momento in Europa, ma penso anche da altre parti. Per cui ci troviamo con un settore che ha benemerenze ecologiche di altissimo livello, un settore che ha un'importanza fondamentale nella sostenibilità ambientale e più in generale nella mobilità sostenibile, che comunque per una serie di motivi che tutti voi conoscete è un settore che in questo momento, nonostante che ha tutte queste benemerenze, stenta, ha dei problemi e quindi si deve così reinventare tutti i giorni. Quindi niente, io vi lascio e vi dico anche una cosa, nel convegno tirate fuori tante buone idee, perché ci servono, perché ne abbiamo proprio un grande bisogno, perché è vero che il momento è un momento di crisi, ma prendiamo crisi insomma con la parola greca antica che vuol dire cambiamento, nel senso che dobbiamo cercare di trovare la capacità e fare lo sforzo per andare oltre, perché il nostro settore lo merita senz'altro. Grazie e buon lavoro.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, can I now invite the panelists for the retreading panel onto the stage, please? So we have 4 panelists today, some of the leading lights from the retreading industry in Europe. We have Yorick, Lowin, the Director General of BIPAVER. We have Vittorio Marangoni, the CEO of the Marangoni Group. We have Stefan Mayrhofer, the CEO of Freiburg, Austria, and we have Frederico Schmidt, the General Manager of Vipal Europe. I'm just going to take my seat in a second. I'll be asking questions from the chair over there, so if you just bear with me just a couple of minutes and then we'll start. Is this, can you, yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. So what I'm going to do here is I've got a big, long list of questions for the panelists, and we're just going to have a conversation. Let's begin with one of the topics which is right at the head of what everyone is talking about at the moment, and that is the subject of the tariffs being imposed on the whole world in all industries by the US on the US government. So I just wanted to ask how the panelists felt that the current turmoil is affecting the truck tyre market, how you expect this to develop, and and what the retreading industry can do to mitigate the impact of this, of what's going on. Who would like to start? Stefan.
Okay, I will try to start. Good afternoon to everybody. To be honest, I think it's still very difficult to say what will happen to our market, to the truck tire business, to retreading, because there is no security. There's no security in planning at the moment, because on one day we have huge tariffs worldwide, and the other day we have no tariffs anymore. So it's changing a lot, and this is difficult, I think, not for our sector, but for the industry in total. That it's very difficult to plan, and for that reason, and from my point of view, it's difficult to give a clear forecast what will happen to our sector, to the truck tire industry, or to retreading.
Just to complement, can you hear me? Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. David, thank you for having me here. What we have seen also recently is because of the tariffs, it brings another layer of pressure on the retreading, and of course in the new tire industry too. Another layer of pressure because mainly of pricing. These new tariffs and the uncertainty they created, like you said, Stefan, we see creating three major effects. One of them is in the currency, and the weaker US dollar made the euro tires cheaper to bring it in. The other one, the logistic, the sea freight, reduced the costs of the freights coming from Asia, which impacts also on the price of the tires. And the third one, the surplus of the tires that they have in the Asia, they have to allocate to other countries. And then with those three factors, we see even prices that we thought that was already low last year, going even further down.
Yorick?
Okay, well, it's always easier if you are down the line answering the questions. A lot of people have said already so much, or it could be harder to add something to it. But I agree with Stefan. It's we are not in a stable situation where we can trust on what's going on. Like you said, one day to the other, or it could be 3 changes per day. So it's pretty hard to predict what's coming. If I look back to the anti-dumping and anti-subsidy duties on Chinese TBR tires, which were now prolonged for 1 year. So what did we see? We saw that there was a shift of production. So this is one thing. So I really can agree also with you. The first quick reaction to the tariffs would be, okay, the tires are going to be produced and they are going to look for a different market. And Europe will be one open market. And I don't want to say it's going to be flooded with tires, but it's a possibility. Like I said, it's too early to say how it's going to be, but this could be a threat I see here.
Thank you. Yes, I'm the last one, so they almost said everything. But, well, we have also to consider the general situation and what happened in the past. So first of all, we are talking about TBR. On TBR, tariffs are not new. There are already in charge of TBR in the US market that run from 30 to 85%. So a plus 20, 30% won't change anything. Same things for Europe. The point is that, of course, every excuse, it's a good excuse to push more volume into the European market. This because it's the least protected at all. But finally, the effect, especially on TBR market, will not be so much because, of course, Asian production can move from one country to the other very fast. So if they may put tariff on China, they will sell tires from Thailand or Cambodia or Vietnam. If you put tariff on Thailandia, they will move factory to Malaysia, or they can even came here near Europe in Morocco or Serbia. And, well, are always the same Chinese tire at the end of the day. And I want to say more than that, but the point is that it's not changing the balance of the market, and the pressure will keep be on the market because their strategy is not just selling some tire to make money. Their strategy is to conquer our market and our economy.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Vittorio. So let's move on to another subject, another topic which is at the forefront of what everyone is talking about at the moment is the opportunity that is offered to the retreading industry by the subject of sustainability. So, so I wanted to ask the panel, you know, the importance of the global sustainability agenda is, you know, how important is that to the retreading industry, and how do you feel that the industry can work better with governments to improve the future of the sector? Start at the other end. Vittorio, do you want to say something about that? We'll go backwards.
Okay. So first of all, there is, let's say, a basic problem. So the global sustainability agenda is not global. And that's the first problem. So we have other economies who, of course, are taking advantage by the fact that they're not respecting this agenda. They do not have any SDGs, and so they can be more competitive than us. Then we have, of course, to respect all this kind of target and of good practice. So, beside that, I think that retrading business has a perfect fit with this kind of things, because you have to think that retrading is good for the environment, is good for, let's say, the society, because it gives local jobs, it helps the local economy, and those are the three main pillars on which is based the global sustainability agenda. So we have a business which has a perfect fit with that. The problem, again, is, but if we are so good and we respect and have all the SDG in our business, what does it came for us? What is our advantage? Just, I don't know, having a good sustainability report? What is going to do the institution for that? Something more maybe than a moral suasion, because with that we cannot compete.
Okay, pass that on, Yorick.
Well, if I look at the global sustainability, I would agree it's not global. If I just look at the European situation, a couple of years ago we started with the Green Deal in Europe. Now we are at the Clean Industrial Deal. And we talked about this morning at the General Assembly of the European Retreading Association BIPAVER we held here at Autopromotech, that if you look at different European legislations, saying it politely, I hope they only forgot the retreaded tire in one of the legislation and didn't put it in on purpose. But we see that even though they want to be very green, ecological, some of them don't see that there is a retreaded tire who can help. And this is, I think, well, our chance, our opportunity, our duty as an association to tackle the European Commission to really focus more on the retreaded tire. It will not solve all the climate problems we have, but it's a technology we have and we can use it, and it's one small step that's there. We don't have to invent it, we just have to give it a little push. And this is really strange that it always, and like I said, I hope they only forgot us and didn't leave us out on purpose.
Yeah, just to complement that, I believe we are in the same understanding. We know that retreading is the key when you talk about sustainability for tires, is a need in the tire life cycle. And we also know, for those that follow closely the economics of the tire life cycle, that retreading is the way to be more economical overall on the tire life. I guess the key challenge is getting the industry together with the government, and the government more than anything, when they talk about sustainability, to really include retreading in the plan.
What I want to agree on is that even if I have a look on the European situation, the sustainability agenda gets shorter and shorter at the moment. And we move from a Green Deal to a Clean Industrial Deal. But I see also a positive aspect in this transformation, because as long as we keep the goals in mind that we want to reach with the Green Deal, but make it more effective, more efficient, then it might be the right step forward for us, because we know that all these legislations create a lot of administrative effort for all of us. Yeah? And what I see at the moment is the intention to really reduce this effort and to get a more leaner way of reaching the goals. And as long as this is the way forward for us, then I'm quite confident that this is the right way for Europe and for us.
Okay, so that's sustainability. Now another topic which is in the spotlight a lot is the importance of technology to the future of the retreading sector. So robotics, AI, automatic sorting, and other new technologies. So I'd like to ask the panel, what do you expect to see going forward in terms of new technologies, and what would you like to see?
Well, I think automation and digitalization is also is important for every industry and for every aspect of our life. Unfortunately, I do not see a lot in our industry. I think we are not really first mover. We are very slow in these aspects. But I think it will be also a necessity for our industry, for us as a material supplier, but also for the retreaders to use much more of this technology, of these possibilities, to be attractive, to be competitive. I think it's very important for us to use whatever technology available also in our industry, and not only in production, but also in the administration areas. I think this is also a very important aspect for us, not only to think always about the production, but also about administrative departments in our factories, to also use these kind of technologies in this aspect.
Correct. I believe the technology is coming faster. Yes, it's on. The technology is coming faster and faster. We need to keep pace with it. Nowadays, we see new equipment being much more automated. Definitely, there is a need in the retreading, especially in the independent retreading, to catch up with that. The equipment are not just automated nowadays. It's not just the question of making the product more quality-wise in a high standard, but also is connecting all the systems like you mentioned, Stefan. It's not a question of connecting just the production line. Nowadays, there is technologies that you can connect the production together with your ERP system, together with your commercial system, and make the whole cycle much more efficient. That is happening everywhere. It's not in the retreading, and we definitely need to catch up to it. There is some, I recommend all especially in the SMEs companies, there is some funds available in the European level that are promoting this type of innovations within the companies throughout training, throughout acquiring new equipment, and we see that definitely is a need to adapt.
Okay, Vittorio, would you like to comment?
So thanks, Federico, for promoting our integration system of TRM. No, let's say, retreading is a less wealthy industry than many others, like new tire manufacturing. For this reason, of course, it has a delay in the development of the technology. But if I have to look also to the good part of the story, is that we have big potential to, let's say, improve the competitivity of retreading because of that. And the cost of technology is getting lower and lower. And I'm not talking just about automation, but I'm talking especially about software. So how Federico said, if we want to exploit the full potential of this new developing cycle of the artificial intelligence, we must connect all the system. So we have to digitalize all the process, from the tire to the machinery to our ERP. In this way, we can really use what will be the development of artificial intelligence. We still do not know where we can go, but we need to build this link. And this means IoT, RFID, TPMS, it means imaging technology, using of big data, API to connect the whole software and machinery. With this kind of link, we can leverage on the development of this new technology, and we can really make a big leap for retrading. What I would like to see with that, well, first of all, I would like to see, let's say, a better traceability of the product. That means a better manage of the life cycle of the product, so better casing at the end to be retreaded, and a better respect of the waste hierarchy, because the waste hierarchy, after the use of the products, always start with reuse and remanufacturing, so with retreading. Thank you.
Okay, Yorick, I'd like to come to you next, but on a different subject. I think this is probably one that you should start with, and that's the subject of legislation. So how do you think the independent retailing sector will be affected by legislation going forward? Will it be a help or will it be a hindrance, do you think? And what are the opportunities that exist for the retailing sector?
Well, thank you. I think we have two sets of legislation, and some of the legislations we saw in the past were more a burden also for our industry. If I look at the European deforestation regulation, if I look at the taxonomy regulation, perhaps if I look at the labeling legislation, so they put a really high burden on the industry, and we still don't know how to cope with it. And to be honest, I don't see very much advantage in all of them. But if we look a little bit forward, and for example, we look now into the ESPR and the Eco-Design Sustainable Product Regulation, or together with the Digital Product Pass, well, there could be a chance if we find out and we say tires placed on the European market should be retreadable as a demand, perhaps, without having perhaps right now a system to certify or to test if a tire is retreaded. But I can think of a lot of advantages here to push our industry there, and I wish we go forward with that and not to get a burden of a lot of regulations which have a high administration workload coming with it. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a good idea if we say, okay, we don't want any natural rubber from burned places, and I want to stop deforestation. That's a good goal, but we always have to think, how do I reach this goal? And is the administrative burden I put on the industry good, and does it really help that much at the other hand? So I think we have to rethink a little bit to say, okay, what are really our focus on the environment, and how can we really achieve the goal? And my favorite topic right now, and I think a lot of them are talking about the EUDR. Well, we have this burden, but every car that is imported in the European Union every passenger car has 4 wheels. And the EUDR does not apply to the tires on those cars, because cars are not in the scope of the Annex 1, if I look into natural rubber. So we see, well, on the one hand, we have a burden on the other side. You know it better than me, how many cars are imported, how many tires come in. They don't have to fulfill the EUDR. And I think there's a little bit mismatch in the legislation, which we really have to straighten out in the future.
Thanks, Yorick. Who else would like to comment on this?
Regulations that bring another requirements for the companies that they need to implement, to follow through new tests, through new bureaucracy in paperwork, or nowadays electronically, definitely put a lot of pressure in the small and medium enterprises. Usually they are not ready, or they don't have the capability of following that close this type of regulations like bigger companies. But on the other hand, like Yorick said, regulations, they are there to promote retreading. We have several of them that the legislation has been created, regulations so-so. We know implementations in the government level where they are supposed to use certain percentage of retreading in their fleets, but they are really, if they don't use, nothing really happen. So that type of regulation that can promote the use of retreads, I believe is very valid.
Stefan, would you like to say something on this?
not a lot to add.
Yeah.
But maybe one aspect what I want to say. In general, there, as Yorick said, there are some legislations, directives which give chances to our industry. Of course, there is an initial effort to implement these directives in our companies, but at the end, I see chances as the ESPR as one example. I see only one risk, and this is a problem that I see since years. Meanwhile, that there is, in general, we think about the directive and the legislation, but we don't think that much about how to control it. And every legislation is not only as good as it is possible to control it. And that's what I miss at the moment, that there is not too much where we think about how we can control it. And this is would be very important for not only for our industry, but in general for Europe. I think that we do not only make legislation, but that we also think about how we can control all those things that we implement at the moment.
Yeah,
My turn.
Yeah, your turn. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, a regulation is always the same issue. Here we think to rule the world, but we are alone. No one is following us, so we are making rule that who is in Europe has to respect. But anyone who is outside Europe cannot respect it because we cannot enforce this regulation outside our territory. So at the end of the day, what happened is that this regulation became just a disadvantage, a competitive disadvantage for us. So this is, let's say, the general issue. Then, of course, we have to go more into the specific. Because from one side, we are leaving regulation as a burden and as something that is complicating and creating more problems than solution. But from the other side, we are not doing anything to guide this regulation in the right direction. So this is the main point. I know that the industry like retreading, which is made of small, medium enterprise, has, of course, less presence, less influence to the institution. So there is no one in Brussels who is guiding this kind of regulation and talking to the European Commission about retreading. Or our, let's say, position on that is very weak. So this is the first point. If we find a way, if we all act, and if we all go and talk about retreading, make the institution understand about retreading, we can guide regulation in the right direction, because retreading is the right things to do, is the best things to do for a tyre. So we have just to make institution understand that and build regulation that help retreading instead of course, damaging our business like it happens. Well, the last example was a UDR that luckily at a certain point, talking with the European Commission, someone listened to us and decided to take out casing from the UDR because it was crazy. You know, but I can make many other examples like taxonomy, like labeling, and there are many. But we need to be more present. And this is an invitation that I do at my competitors, at my customers, at all the people who are working in retreading, and also to the association. So they ask for some idea. Here it is an idea. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so for the next question, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, I think. I'd like to get a discussion going about the relationship between the new tyre manufacturers and the independent retailing sector. So my question is, are the tyre manufacturers a necessary evil? On how will the relationship develop between tyre manufacturers and the retailing sector in the future? I see Stefan.
I don't want to call them a necessary evil, to be honest. I think they're an important player in our business, and we need a new tire industry as well. as long as they produce tires which are retrievable. This is an important aspect. And I think with those producers in our market who really produce premium products, retrievable tires, I think there is a somehow good connection, yeah, which could be maybe better in what you mentioned before in working together and improving our situation. Here, joining forces would be appreciated also from my side. I think this is much better if we work together. I think there are common interests between the new tire industry and also the retreading industry. And I think this would be very important to find a common way and improving the situation for all of us.
Okay, who's next? Would anyone else like to comment?
No, I completely agree. When we talk about retreading and new tires is a need. If we didn't have new tires, our industry wouldn't exist to start with. So we definitely need a quality tire to start with in order to complete the life cycle of the tire and to get the most of it. In the past, we used to talk about disposable tires, where they are built only for one life, and I'm not even go to that type of product, because when we talk about sustainability, we need to have the best quality casing to start with. The best quality casing is what is going to give you the best economic value overall on the tire life, and that's what is going to be complementing with retreading. So I see the new tire industry with definitely a need and a must for us, for our industry. But definitely we need to get together in the sense of what we want for the life of the tire, what we need to. There is a lot of companies that push and see the value of quality casing and retreading. But what is needed, and I would say in the new tire industry, is the consensus of that's the way to go.
Excellent.
I think we cannot only talk about the new tire industry. So we have players in the new tire industry that acknowledge that there must be a retreaded, or that the tire must be retreaded, because they not only produce a high quality new tire, they themselves retread their own tires, or they offer systems for the SME retreaders which they can use. So on this side, we have new tire industries that are recognizing the need of the retreading. On the other side, and I think we have to talk about those tire manufacturers which don't see it, they produce a low quality new tire, and I think with them we have to really get in touch, and I agree we have to work with them, and they have to see also the need of the retreading and see how this can help the environment to fulfill. But like I said, it's not the new tire industry, we have also retreaders within them.
Thank you. Well, I agree on that, of course, and something that we are trying even to do. Not so easy as new tire industry is a very big industry, but I think that this discussion must need a picture of the industry. And if we look at the new tire manufacturing industry in Europe, well, just at the beginning of this year, it has been announced the shutdown of 8 factories in Europe. There is a total of 12 factories in Germany, 6 in France, just to have a number, so 8 is a huge number. And is equal just to the number of the announcement of how many factories was opening in Asia. So this is what is going on. In the last 5 years, the local production of new tire in Europe passed from 60% to 37%. And the rest, 63%, is all imports that are mainly coming from Asia. So we always complain about the situation of retreading industry. But the situation in the new tire manufacturing industry is getting even worse. So this is the picture. In this picture, what can we do as Retreader? What can we expect to do with new tires? So we have some treats that, of course, is coming from Asia, because there are still a lot of Asian manufacturer which has very poor quality, and that means non-retreadable tire, which is a treat. And from the other side, there is also some manufacturer that is thinking to do what I call the over-sustainability. So they want to make a new tire, all made by recycled material that, of course, cannot have the quality of original material, and that means they will lower the quality of the new tire, and the tire will have a shorter life and would not be retreadable anymore. So at the end of the day, they want to be sustainable, but they get the opposite result. But of course, this is a treat for retreading too. From the other side, then there are the opportunity. Where do we have to look? And the opportunity are that there are still, like my colleague says, there are still some new tire manufacturers who want to push on premium tire and to demonstrate and to prove the value of premium tire, they need retreading. So for them, retreader are very important. And from the other side, there are also Asian tire producers who are increasing quality of their tire. And they want also to be recognized this better quality, this more value. And for that reason, they also like retreading. Even because, of course, retreader help them also to have a better presence on the market, which for them is also important. So, like I said, there are threats and there are opportunities. We have to focus on the opportunity.
Okay, thanks, Vittorio. So I think we've got time. I've got time for one more question here before I open this out to the floor. So my next question is: the retailing industry is at different stages of development around the world in terms of the networks and also in terms of technology. So in which global regions does the panel think that future growth will come from, and where are the opportunities?
We have very consolidated markets. If we look at Europe, if we look at the Americas per se, retreading has been there for many years. It's a well-known industry. But there is some spaces definitely to where retreading can still develop and prosper. I would say mainly Africa and Asia. There's a lot of countries still, for instance, in Africa, that retreading is not even there. We see possibilities since we act on those countries with different products, not only retreading, like in repairing and furthermore developing the retreading industry. We see that possibilities in, like I said, in Africa, for instance, are much bigger than Europe. Europe, because of the situation that we are facing nowadays, because of the prices, a consolidated market, retreading industry, is losing market share. But we see in other countries where there is possibilities of creating this retreading business as one of the main options.
Well, if I see the challenges ahead of us, especially in the scarcity of raw materials and resources worldwide, I think there has to be a change in our attitude in our society at all. And I think these changes and overcoming these challenges brings chances to our industry in the future, as we discussed before. And this will happen in every part of the world, because this problem is a worldwide problem and not only a problem of Europe. And so I think there will be chances in every part of the world. Maybe in some parts of the world that the chances are bigger, in other not that big. We cannot say when it will start. This is the big insecurity that we have at the moment. But in general, I'm optimistic that there are still chances for us in the future, also in Europe, but also in other parts, as mentioned before, where we might have opportunities with our products.
Well, if I recap what we talked about today, I really also see a big chance, a growth in Europe. So we talked about the chances in legislation. So if that comes, we could have a push here. Also, we have some regulation in some parts where it's demanded that a certain percentage of the public fleets must be equipped with retreaded tires. And we talked about the control. I think you, Stefan, said it. If it's not enforced, whatever there is a problem. So if we would use the legislation there is, if it would be enforced, and perhaps use the new legislation, I definitely also see a growth market still here in Europe.
Totally agree, as I said before, and we must make our voice heard for that. And this is why also events like this are so important to promote retrading, make retrading, let's say, known to everybody. What about the development in the world? So, retrading is a quite widespread business, but I'm pretty sure to say that it's not a business in China, and at least not in the short term. For the rest of the world, you have to consider that there are many reasons why to retread the tire. Because you could retread the tire because it's green, because it's a service, like we are doing in Europe, or you could retread the tire because it's cheap, like it happens in Africa or in India. Or you could retread the tire because it's necessary, like, for example, in a country where there are sanctions, or in the big mining sites, which are very far away from the city. So there are several reasons to do that, and also a combination of that. More or less, the retrading is moving connected with the general growth of the economy, because, of course, especially because retrading is made on truck tires, OTR tires, aircraft tires, so it's very connected to transportation, and that's why it's connected with the growth of the economy. I'm pretty sure that, let's say, retrading exists for more than 100 years. And, I'm sure, and I can say for sure that it's hard to imagine a world where retrading will not exist anymore. So will still be, even in Europe, at the end of the day, this price war on new tire will end and retrading will become more competitive again. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so I think we've got about 5 minutes or so now to take some questions from the floor. So it's not often we get the chance to get such a great experienced panel of people from the retrading industry, so together in the same place at the same time. So can we have some questions from the floor, please? Who would like to ask a question? And I'll step out in the audience. Come on, there must be somebody who's got a question. Anybody? Enrico Fiore. Okay, I'll just go in the audience and I'll pass the. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very focused to the new tire, for example, in the retreading, and also the 1st of May in the US, Yokohama tire released a new tire, and they say that this tire in 3 different sizes have a 7-year unlimited retread casing warranty. 7 years. So this means that they open a new world for the retread with this type of tire. What happened in Europe if this tire is made in USA? What's happened if in Europe the tire manufacturing can do the same things?
Would anybody like to make a comment?
Like I mentioned before, it's a very good question to start, a very good question. Like I mentioned before, our industry, our retreading industry, thrive on the need of quality casings. We definitely would like to see that happening in Europe, and we definitely would like to see that becoming a common product in the market. I'm really glad from Yokohama. Let's do some advertising for them too, because we need companies that promote retreading, because we believe that's the way. We need to have quality products. Unfortunately, I cannot answer your question about if that can be done here, because we are not in the new tire business, but we definitely would hope for.
Short answer, we already retread tire old, 7 years old. So it's nothing new. It's already a practice in the market. It depends, of course, how has been treated the casing in his life cycle. But you can retread a 7 years old tire, even a 10 years old tire, if it has been keep it in the right condition. So it's not new. It's good that they are saying it, because it means they care about retreading. And that would be, of course, also fantastic news for Europe.
Okay, does anybody else have a question for the panel? Anna Maria Guth.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be interested how you see the potential of consumer car tire retreading. Consumer car tires. No, not TBR, but passenger cars. Sorry.
Well, we were retreading passenger car until 2009. And then we shut down the activity because, of course, it was no more competitive. It was a matter of price, mainly, and of fragmentation of the market. So about price, the point is that if we look at this business not as a business where you can sell a cheaper tire, but a business where you can save material, and so he has an environmental value, which can be done, for example, in a closed cycle. So if I handle a fleet, like rental cars, something like that, and I equip my car with the tire, and then I retread my tire and so on, it can be convenient, because of course I have a lower cost of kilometers, and can work like that. And from the other side, the fragmentation, which is the main issue, because it's a technical issue, I think that we can start to solve this issue with technology. Because new technology, which can allow us to handle more complex activity, will of course help a lot retreading. I don't have in mind number about PCR, because it's no more our business, but I want to tell you some number on TBR. Today in Europe, we have more than 300 brands and around 14,000 items of just TBR. 14,000 items. And at the end of these days, there will be 10 more. So this is the complexity of the market. And if you want to retread all those tires, it's not possible, but let's say if you want to analyze all this tire, it means that you need to have specification and receipts for everyone. It's impossible to do that with the old system, so with a paper tag and the expertise of the most senior operator. You have to use digitalization, you have to use artificial intelligence. That will allow to handle this complexity, and maybe can open also new scenario even on smaller tire. Maybe not PCR right now, light truck could be something interesting and going on. There is a huge potential. Today we are retreading less than 8% of tire in Europe. Huge potential.
Okay. Anybody else before we close down? Anybody want to say something? I think we're going to have to stop shortly, but...
no, just a quick, yes, definitely. Passenger tires, the technology of retreading them have been for many years. In Europe, unfortunately, not just in Europe, I would say globally, the decrease of retreading of passenger tires was not because of the technical side of it, was the economical side of it. The pressure that we are feeling more strongly nowadays in the TBR Unfortunately, in Germany, I believe it was last year, the only retread shop of passenger tires there ceased operation. We had a big one in Spain also recently ceased operation. But we have good news too. There is a big one in France pushing for the retreading of passenger tires, looking mainly in the environmental benefits of this. But it's possible, like many other tires. OTR tires, as mentioned before, we know that aircraft tires, the majority of the airlines use retread tires. So the technologies here is more, nowadays I would say, is more question of will from the industry and the government getting together on that and looking into the sustainability of it.
Okay, so we're going to have to move on to the rest of our program now. So can I please thank all of our panelists for joining us today. Thank you so much. It's been a great session. Okay. Thanks everybody. Okay, yeah, cheers. Okay, so we're now going to move on to our individual speakers. And our first speaker is Michael Schwämmlein, who's a technical director of BIPAVER, and he's going to talk about some of the latest legislative developments in the retreading sector. Michael.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome also from my side. Thanks, David, for having me here. A lot of these questions about regulatory impacts to the retreading industry have already been discussed, so some of them we can go through quite quickly. Basically, what are we going to deal with? Well, we have certain regulatory aspects we need to cover for the retreading side. The one is on the type homologation side, so on the ECE level of regulations, but also on the labeling issue. The last conference we had, I was updating you about the situation on that. Then we have the EU regulation, where we have some problems to deal with at the moment because there are some contradictory acceptance of retreaded tires in the EU regulations we're going to mention. Then we give you an update of the anti-dumping and anti-subsidy duties implemented or renewed at the beginning of the year for Chinese DPR imports. Then we have the already mentioned UDR regulations, and then some upcoming topics we are going to see in the future, maybe a bit more concrete. But we start with the type homologation issue, and the first one we already mentioned in the last conference is the new regulation, the ECE 172. You know that in the past we had all the issues concerning the snowflake marking directly positioned in the 108 and the 109 regulation, but in reality we were having some problems on the administrational level that some of the certificates issued by the material manufacturer or some of the new tire references that were based on the ECE 117 have not been accepted in all countries, in all regions by any type approval authorities. So we now sat together with the new tire industry and came to the conclusion saying, similar to the new tire side, where all the safety and environmental aspects are out of the typical type approval regulation R30 and 54, are now transferred since years in the 117 to follow the same system. And now we have created the new regulation, which is basically taking care of all the aspects for retreaded tires as far as their snow tire performance is concerned and their traction properties is concerned. So the new regulation has been enforced together with the necessary changes on the R108 and 109, leading to the serial 1 of amendments of the 108 and 109, has been enforced in January 10th this year. That has some influence in the future for new retreading shops starting their business and trying to get type approved. So all the new businesses starting from September 1st this year would need to apply to the Series 01 amendments of the R108 and 109. and more important for all existing type approval workshops following the original 108 and 109, they need to transfer their type approval into the series 1 of amendments and keeping track for the 172 recommendations until September 1st, 2028. So that's the next challenge to be done. We, from the BIPAVER side, of course, informed all our member associations and our direct members. We developed a guideline for the retreader and for the material manufacturer to follow these actions that are needed now. So hopefully we will use the next nearly 3 years to come to get a safe and fast transfer from the original system to the new requirements. So this is theoretically shown the correlation between the 117 on the new tire side, which is the upper dark blue side, and then the light blue side, which is basically now the new regulation, which is similar to the 117 at the moment on the retreading side. Also, we had to make sure that the snow tire certifications and the testing are a bit more precise as far as the repeatability is concerned. And that is why some new standard reference tires have been in place, especially for trailer tires and for all position tires, which normally have a straightforward longitudinal orientated design, as you see it on the left side. They have a repeatability in the measuring process, which is very close. So the snow grip index is very close to the target, to the goal thresholds you have there. And that's the reason why, to make this a bit more concrete, a bit more effective, and the repeatability to improve for the SRDT, there's some new designs now implemented, as you can see, for the 19.5 and 22.5 test reference tire for these snowflake approvals. Next point, we were talking since year about labeling for retreads. We all know that there's very often discussions with customer, with fleets going ahead, where the customer says, well, we have a label for new tire, we have a certain classification for rolling resistance, for wet grip, for noise, but we haven't anything for the retreaded tires, so there are some doubts about the quality, about the performance level of retreaded tires. So since 2016, and that's not a spelling mistake, that's reality, we are starting to discuss with the Commission about a system to label a retreaded tire. Well, unfortunately, everybody who is familiar with the retreading business knows that the retreading is not quite comparable to a new tire manufacturer process, where you're using primarily new material and then produce on an installed, highly automated machinery a tire 1 million times the same way. If you go into a mid-sized retreading workshop that does about 6,000 tires a year, you have 6,000 different product combinations in that workshop. And you can imagine that it's simply not a copy and paste of the regulation on the new tire side to the retreaded side. And if you look at the labeling parameters, the most critical one, of course, is the rolling resistance. Why? Because the casing as a base for the retreaded tire is an unknown product for the retreader. So he has to take what he gets, but he doesn't know exactly what are the rolling resistant properties of that casing he's going to use to produce a retreaded tire. And that was the most, or still is the most critical point. For the other parameters like wet grip, winter properties, or rolling noise, the tread has the highest influence. The casing has a minor or virtually non-existing influence. So there we can apply the same measurements, the same thresholds, as we already know from the new tire side. So the idea the industry came up is saying we are concentrating on TBR, we are focusing on the major 10 to 12 dimensions that are covering about 95% of the market in TBR, and there's a big difference to passenger car tire, where you do not have 10 to 12 dimension, but 75 to cover approximately 80% of the market, which is a purely mold cure process and a big variation in the geometrical measurements of the individual casing. So far more complex, even more complex, I have to say, than the TBR side. But with all the tolerances and the variables we have in the retreading process, the proposal we came up with is that we need a higher bandwidth for the rolling resistant than we have for new tires. New tires at the moment have a bandwidth for each band from A to E of 1 Newton per kilonewton. Our proposal was saying 1.5. And for the verification tolerance, where we have 0.0 for the new tires, we would need 0.7 for the market surveillance to keep up with the possibilities we have in the retreading field. So where are we now with the labeling process? Since we left since 2016 until 2021, 5 years without getting any support from the Commission and anything moving. We're now initially starting this process to go through and trying to set in a delegated act to modify the existing new tire labeling regulation, the 740/2020, in regard to retreads. So the status at the moment is that the first principal feasibility study that was performed by IDIADA as technical service has been ended with a positive result. So they said, okay, the proposal from the industry seems to be feasible. Now there's an impact assessment going on by Wagner and Marangoni, a very famous intellectual property studying organization from the Nordics, and their results are supposed to end the second quarter of this year, so hopefully the end of June. And then there are some more steps to take in the EU process to get a delegated act installed. So we hope to finalize it that at the end of the first quarter 2026, we might have the delegated act to modify the existing tire labeling regulation. But having this installed, then of course the market has to prepare themselves, and therefore the obligatory enforcement will need another transitional period, as it is normal for all technical regulation, of about 24 months. So you can calculate yourself that there will be no obligation for a label before 2028. Keeping in mind we started in 2016 and the goal is now 2028. In the panel discussions before, we have heard that at the moment TBR business all over Europe is not running very good, and also retreading is concerned in that region. So you would imagine that the regulation and the politics would support their famous Green Deal goal into circular economy and so on. Unfortunately, we can say that at the moment we have some of the regulations which are dealing exactly in the opposite way. Because if you, for example, look at the taxonomy regulations, and I copied you some points out of the regulation 2485, which is responsible for the evaluation of road transport activities in regard to ecology and sustainability. There it clearly says, if a vehicle in classes M or N is supposed to be active in these activities, it should be labeled with one of the two best existing label class for rolling resistance and for noise. No word about retreading. But that means if a transport company, a public bus company is following the taxonomy regulation, retreads are out. It's as simple as that, because retreads at the moment are not labeled. No label, no business. On the other side, other parts of the Commission, because there are some general directives, environment, energy, financial, SME, they are all dealing with Green Deal and goals on circular economy, but obviously they are never sitting around a table to discuss what they are doing, because everybody does what they believe is good. And very often retreads are not in their minds, and regulations are published. And as Vittorio said before, BIPAVER, as the only existing formal representation of the independent retread industry, is not in the game. So the regulation is out, and we are fighting now afterwards to get the problems changed. Here you get a positive example, where we have been active quite soon, quite early, and there you see that the retreaded tires are accepted as an alternative for the individual labeled new tires. The thing is, this is a recommendation, not a regulation, whereas taxonomy is a regulation. And if you follow the complexity of EU regulation, the base of taxonomy is a regulation 852 that was changed by a delegated act with a regulation 23 something that was again updated by the 2485, and there's another one 2486. So who is reading all these delegated acts and all this modification? So who, as a transport company, is exactly aware what is conform to taxonomy and what not? And this is one of the biggest issues we're facing at the moment, and we are hoping to get some more support from the Commission to replace the retreads as part of the priority in circular economy, which is called reuse, before we talk about recycling, burning, pyrolysis, and whatever mentioned in the chain of circular economy in the priority after reuse and retreading. Anti-dumping campaigns. You know that we were fighting together with BIPAVER and the new tire industry to get anti-dumping duties for TPR imports from China renewed the beginning of the year. I just show you the outcome here. On the 16th January this year, the EU Commission came to their ruling and saying the anti-dumping and anti-substituting are prolonged by another 5 years on a lower level than before. And the range now per tire starts from about 21 euro and in the worst case about to 62 euro. And the duties are in place as usual with the WTO regulations for another 5 years. Of course, what we heard before, immediately after 5 years ago, the duty were implemented for Chinese TPR imports. Some of the bigger producers are just swapping their production into other countries, like Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, just to name a few. And of course, they are not falling under the anti-dumping regulation. And I recently got some tire price information, for example, for a tire coming from Thailand, a trailer tire with a weight of 72 kilos. And if I calculate the price of that tire free Rotterdam board, it's €2.40 per kilo. €2.40 for a fully produced tire per kilo. If I would ask Vittorio what a kilo of tread compound is costing him on the material import side, we are above €2. So it's simply not explainable how prices are feasible without being dumped or subsidized. I'm sorry. Euro TR. We have talked about the deforestation regulation. And as discussed before, we are quite happy in the first place that this has been delayed by 12 months until the end of December 2025. But as we already said, we should use this another year given to sort out all the open questions. And one of the major questions for the retreading industry was that in Annex 1 of this regulation, where the scope of the products being concerned are defined, it clearly says retreaded tires and used pneumatic tires of rubber, solid or cushion tires, tire treads, or tire flaps of rubber are in the scope. And that would have been the end of the retreading industry. Because the DTS information, the new tire manufacturer is supposed to transfer from the industry to the retailer, is not further going to the fleet or to the end user. So once this chain of information with this DTS information proving that this tire is not produced of natural rubber coming from a deforest plantation, so you cannot prove that the casing you're using is conform to this regulation. So every retreader could have closed his production. Now there's a new RFQ coming out after we had a lot of discussions, also from the new tire side, with the Commission saying that was never the intention. And now you can read the answer in the FRQ where it says, it is proposed that used tire casings and carcasses, generally used for retreaders tire, are out of the scope of the regulation, whereas retreaded tires as such are in the scope, but only relevant for the new material applied. So trap, sidewall, and so on, which is clear. Good to read, easy to understand, quite clear from our point of view, being quite happy. A few days later, the formal delegated act with the wording for the regulation arrived. That is the upper text you see here marked. And this, from our point of view, is not very clear. So it says, retreaded and used tires, and so on. And 2 lines below, it says, not including waste and not including used products or second-hand products. So are they now excluded or included? Not very easy to understand from our point of view. There was a consultation going on about these text proposals, and we from the BIPAVER side made the lower text proposal, where we simply recommend to take out completely the part used tire and implement on the lower line or product components to make sure that a retreaded tire is using partially used components, e.g. tire casing and carcasses, for the second-hand products. So I don't know, regulations are difficult to read, but I don't know if these upper 4 lines for you are understandable. For us, they are not. And the thing is, at the end, nobody is looking at the FRQs. Everybody is looking at the regulation text, because this is the binding one you have to respect. Finally, I'm coming to the topics which are coming into our segment to come. First of all, we have the corporate sustainability report activities. Fortunately, the companies in scope have been now a bit upgraded as far as the individual companies are concerned. So first of all, it has been delayed by 2 years. It only applies to companies which have more than 250 employees, and with a report started in 2028. And for small and medium market listed companies starting 29. So still there are some companies in the scope, but it's a bit delayed and it's a bit less responding to the smaller companies. Even better on the corporate sustainability due diligence directive, where they stepped up and say the implementation for the first step is only covered for companies with more than 5,000 employees and a net turnover of 115, there's a spelling mistake, it must be million euro, and non-EU companies with a net turnover of 150 million euros starting in 2028. And also already discussed in the panel quite in detail is the eco-design sustainability reports coming up, where we can see that the digital product passport and the general energy label worker plan that was adapted for tires also is giving some opportunities to promote retreading also in Europe, hopefully for the next years to come. Again, implementing a lot of administrational work for the individual parties, but at least we can say then we got some support from the political and regulation side for the best product to be in line with the demand on circular economy for tires. That was all from my side, unless you have got any questions.
Are there any questions for Michael before we move on? No? Well, thanks very much, Michael, for that explanation of this very complex subject. So, our next speaker is Anna-Maria Guth from the AZuR network in Germany, and she's going to explain something about the activities of the AZuR network and about the circular economy.
Perfect. Yeah. This one. All right, perfect. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. My name is Anna-Maria Guth, as David already mentioned, and I want to share our thoughts and our view on the demands for the European Union right now. So we already heard about the Clean Industrial Deal that followed the Green Deal, and we think that's a pretty strong signal for the competitiveness and security of the branch. So we see a big chance in there, and we think that this might be a big potential for the whole industry of retreaders. So hopefully all of you know the AZuR network already. We are a German-based network with a lot of European partners, over 80 organizations, companies, universities, and other organizations are joining. So we are trying to do what was asked in the panel. We are trying to put the strength together to improve circular economy of end-of-life tires. All our members work at the end together to improve circular economy, of course starting with retreading, but going even further. We are not only retreaders and manufacturers in the network, we do have new tire manufacturers. As we heard, they are a big part and an important part of the retreading industry as well. So we are trying to get the whole branch in one network to work on the fields, on the big challenges in the branch. How we do that? Well, that's basically we are working in Germany and with the German industries and the German authorities as well. So we are trying to convince people of retreading at the first place and of recycling at the second place. We are working in project groups. We are trying to convince people of recycled products, and we are doing events to share synergies in between the partners and to improve the work in the branch. So if you are interested, we do have a retreading conference in September at Krone. Krone is one of our partners as well, and that's going to be a big event, so hope I'll see some of you there as well. So what's the mission? And that's why I asked the panel before. Our mission is to keep all the end-of-life tires that were used in Europe, to keep them in Europe, and if possible, to retread them and then recycle them in Europe as well. That's our main mission because we believe recycling is a local industry. We've heard that before as well. And we have the industry. We have a strong small and medium-sized industry in Europe, and we are able to do that. So that's what we are fighting for. And that includes that we believe it would be good if every tire in Europe would be retreaded if possible. And that does not only include TBR, but passenger car tires as well. Something I don't have to tell you. We've heard that, and it should be obvious to those in the panel. But from my experience, I can tell you that a lot of people outside the branch don't know that. So we do have to do a lot of information work. And if we talk to authorities, for example, we all know that the retreading business is pretty old and not a new invention, but a lot of fleet persons in charge do not know about retreaded tires at all. So the gold standard of circular economy, of course, is retreading. So we need to convince people in charge to decide for retreaded tires. One thing how we do that is that we try to build up a new database, so to make clear that retreading is economically and ecologically the better option compared to new tires. So we are talking a lot about CO2 emissions, but it's not only about that. So we did a big study with the Fraunhofer Umsicht back in 2022, which delivered several data, which helps us to convince people by really telling what the positive impact of retreaded tires are. And if we look now, that's a current performance cost analysis, where we can see that a premium tire, which is retreaded twice, has the best results overall. Here you can see the definite results, and if you talk to people outside the branch, you always have a lot of stereotypes about quality and things like that. Even in the branch still, you have a lot of discussions about quality and about the ecological sense of retreading. So that data really helps to convince people and really helps to make clear that it makes sense from a performance cost ratio that you retread a tire twice. We've heard about that already, and that's why I said retreading, of course, is the first step. It always has to be the first step. So reuse or repair a product is in the EU waste hierarchy, and we stick to that and go a step further as well after retreading. So overall, recycling, of course, avoids waste, avoids CO2, and avoids, beside that, monoculture and deforestation. So we've heard that there are a lot of positive impacts. And since the pandemic, I guess we all know that it's a plus that it reduces the dependence on raw materials as well, and shortens the supply chains. The other aspect that makes, or that is a plus for retreading is that we keep the industry in the country. So we do have a lot of retreaders in Europe, and we are losing a lot of new tire manufacturing plants in Europe. So we are supporting the local economy as well. But if we look at reality right now, so how does it look like? We do have a tire recycling rate in Germany of over 50% in 2023. That's recycling, that's not retreading, unfortunately. We're working for the 50% in retreading, but the global average stagnates at 7.2%. So there's still a lot of potential globally, but of course there's still a lot of potential in Europe as well. But what we can see in the market right now is that despite the clear ecological and economical advantages, the future of tire circularity in Europe is threatened. So we demand several things from the European Union to improve the retreading business in Europe and the circular economy of tires. What we demand is a strong European financing mechanism to balance national subsidies. We've heard that before. A binding circular economy targets for all key industrial sectors. We think it would be helpful to promote cradle-to-cradle product design through legal framework, standards, and innovation support. We think a clear focus on resource conservation is needed, so it's not just about recycling, but also about material reduction, reuse, and alternative materials. And as Mr. Schwämmlein already mentioned intensively, we need to include the retreaded products in the labeling. So we see a lot of challenges right now in Germany for the retreaders. That includes mainly, as we heard, it's a small and medium-sized industry, and they are burdened with over-regulation, bureaucracy, high energy cost, the cheap tire imports we've heard about, and a lack of political support. So we think the EU should support the retreading business now, the industry and the recycling industry as well. And it's not that complicated as we've heard it, I guess. So our first demand is that there should be no chance for any not retreadable tire to enter the European market. We've heard that, but as well, I want to mention that we're not talking about TBR, we are talking about passenger car tires as well. Even though that's pretty complex, we think and we believe that it's a big potential for Europe and that we really have to work on that. So unfortunately, there is going one retreader to open up a passenger car tire plant, hopefully next year. So we are starting all over again, and we are hoping that there will be some other support from European countries to make sure that this segment is retreaded as well. Besides that, we think the public authorities have to be a role model. So I don't see any reason why public fleets, especially like, for example, public transport on bus, don't drive on retreaded tires. There would be a good option to have some clarity and some planning options for the industry and for the companies. And we demand that they prefer prefer retreaded tires in tenders, and if necessary, establish a quote for their use as well. Besides that, we demand a change in the end of waste status. We are not dealing with waste when we talk about end-of-life tires. We are talking about secondary raw material, so we need a clear change in that as well. I absolutely agree with Mr. Schwämmlein. We need to include retreaded tires in the labeling, because like if you look at the tenders, in most tenders, they're asking for the label, so if they're not included in the labeling, it's going to be hard. I recently saw a film about tire recycling in India, and it's a funny thing that we call it the same way, because if you look at how they do the pyrolysis, how they retread tires, and how they do the material recycling, it's a different kind of thing than compared to the European industry. So what we are asking for is to keep all the material, to keep all the end-of-life tires in Europe, because we are able, we do have the industry, we are able, we know how to produce new products out of it, and therefore we don't want to be any end-of-life tire exported. Again. The next thing is that we need more information. So we need to ease the process for the retreaders, and the RFID chip would be really helpful to improve the product, to improve production, and to improve the retreading process itself. There are a lot of different systems in Europe, but for Germany, we don't have any certified collecting system. So what we are asking for is that only certified collectors are allowed to collect the tires, because that's the starting point. If you don't collect them carefully, if you don't sort them in the right way, it's hard to put them in the right ways in retreading and recycling. We are back to the end of waste status, because that's a big thing, and it's a big thing after retreading as well in the material recycling. So we definitely need an end of waste status in Europe for tire rubber granulate, to make it easier to use it in new products, and to give the companies in that field a little more certainty. That's another big thing, I guess. In Italy, you are far ahead compared to Germany. We are still struggling with that. The rubber-modified asphalt. We think and we believe, because we've done a lot of research and development in this field as well, it's a better product. It's the best way to deal with our infrastructure, as the product itself needs less maintenance and has better qualities than ordinary asphalt. So we want to concentrate on that product and have that in tenders, the rubber-modified asphalt, throughout the European Union. Last but not least, again, the end of waste status, because if we're talking about pyrolysis, which is not a big volume yet, but still a way on how to recycle the material after when retreading is not possible anymore, we need a clear end of waste status for those products out of the pyrolysis, like recovered carbon black, for example, as well to improve the applications for the secondary raw material. If you're looking at the material recycling, you have another big challenge, and that's the migration. Well, it's not the migration-based testing methods. So we are talking about PAHs, and in risk-based, or the risk-based approach has long been used for products in contact with water or food. So why don't we use it for for rubber granulate as well? Because I guess nobody's going to bite in a floor mat, which is made out of end-of-life tire rubber. So the migration is the most important thing, and that makes it easier for people to discover or develop new products and new application for recycled products. And finally, our last demand, and it's last but not least, is the REACH update. It's postponed now, and we don't know when it will take place. And the lack of planning certainty here threatens the existence of the companies as well, because they need some security on where to sell the product, where to develop, where to further do investigations. So we definitely need a clear update on the REACH regulation as well. So what I can say at the end, I said a lot of demands, I mentioned a lot of demands. I think the most important thing is that we stop speaking a lot, stop discussing a lot, and get back to action. So we do have a lot of nice regulations. We need to get them done. And we need to get the support from the European Union and from the local authorities to really stick to the circular economy, because the industry is able to do that. We do have the industry, it's a local industry, and we do have good and better products compared to others. So yeah, that's what we ask for. Just take some more action and start the circular economy in tires again. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Anna Maria? Stratton.
I have a question about, you mentioned the exports. So I think we've probably all seen there's a huge export problem out of the UK. I'm just curious, could you quantify what do the exports from the EU look like right now, and what's their destination?
Well, we don't have clear numbers. We calculate every year the WDK, that's the Association of the Rubber Manufacturing Companies. They calculate the number of end-of-life tires, and we are missing 80,000 tons for last year. They disappeared. So that could be a number which is more or less realistic. And I experienced myself, we've been to the Tire Technology Expo in Hanover this year, and I was approached by so many Indian and Pakistani guys that asked for and weren't even well, they were pretty outgoing, asking for the material, telling me they want to granulate it and sell it back to Europe. So that's pretty weird. But that's nothing I can really rely on numbers. What we experience is mainly India, Pakistan, and Turkey.
Any more questions? No, okay, well, thanks very much, Anna Maria. Appreciate it, thank you. So our next speaker has come all the way from the US. Stratton Kirton is the Vice President of Government Affairs for Liberty Tyre, and Stratton is going to talk to us about some of the challenges of the tyre recycling sector in the US.
Right. Green button. There it is. Hi, everyone. So I'm not going to do my introduction again, but I will tell you a little about our company. So we're Liberty Tyre Recycling. For those of you who don't know, we're the largest in the United States, in North America. We cover all 50 states, 2 provinces in Western Canada, and last year we collected and recycled about 215 million tires, passenger tire equivalent. So today I'm going to go through the US marketplace, a little bit on Canada, and then what Liberty is doing to focus on some of these challenges. As you can imagine, the system in the US in particular is very different from Europe. It's regulated at the state level, and there's a wide variety between states that highly regulate recycling and states that have virtually no regulations. I have a lot of slides, but I'm going to skip through them very quickly. All right, so this audience, I probably don't have to tell why tires matter, but normally I do, and this is how I start. In the US each year, we produce over 300 million end-of-life tires, so 1 person per tire per year. So they're ubiquitous by their design, they're durable, which means when they enter the environment, they don't go away on their own, and they're so difficult to manage that this is a photo of one of my neighbors who uses them as a piece of exercise equipment around our neighborhood. So the US, like much of the world, why tire laws originally went in place in the 1980s is because we used to have a lot of this on the left, which is only about an hour away from where I live in Maryland. It was a tire fire at an unregistered collector, took 9 months to put out, 20 years to remediate the actual site, because they had collected something like 8 million tires, and they, at some point, either a lightning strike or possibly intentionally caught fire and burned uncontrollably. So what I would say is, on the right-hand side, the positive thing is material recycling in the US has come a long way. What you see on the right is not a dream, it's a reality. All of the products that are there made with rubber, which is almost everything except the plants, is available to consumers today in the US, in stores and online. Now, we would like to see more of this. Unfortunately, what we still see a lot of is this. And what's scary to these pictures about me is these are registered and regulated tire processors in the United States from 2 different states. So if you can imagine that some regulated processors look like this, think about what the legal ones look like. And anybody who's been in this industry more than a minute knows that both of these are a disaster, a spark away from fires that are going to be uncontrollable and an environmental disaster that will make that property unusable for decades. So before I talk about what we're trying to do to get higher levels of recycling, what we're trying to do to get less processors like that, just a little bit of a background on where the US was and where it came from. Around the late 1980s and 1990s, the EPA, the US chief environmental regulator, looked around and realized the US had over 1 billion tires on the ground, either in stockpiles or illegal dumps around the country. So they encouraged states to pass laws to focus on the flow and get those tires off the ground into landfills. The good news is we went from 1 billion to less than 50 million on the ground. And in reality, there's only about 2 states that represent the vast majority of that 50 million. So most states, at least from a flow perspective, getting the tires to a legal destination, whether that's disposal or landfilling, have done a decent job. 97% of our tires are tracked, meaning we at least know where they go from generation to recycling or disposal. And then tires, and in this case, we count energy recovery as recycling. If you count energy recovery, it means in the US, it's the 2nd highest recycled commodity in the US. And for the US perspective, it's an accomplishment that nobody in the US market really knows about either. Now the challenge, however, is the bottom green line is the number of tons recycled of tires. The blue line is the tires generated. So while recycling is gradually going up, tires coming off the road is increasing at 3 times the rate. To now, we have over 1,000 tons difference every single year between tires being generated and tires being recycled, primarily driven by more people on the roads, the type of vehicles being larger and heavier, particularly in the US marketplace, and then trends like all-wheel vehicles and EVs. So in terms of regulation, as I mentioned, it's a little bit of a scattered marketplace, but what I will say, and I'm happy to go back and answer specific questions, but if you want to know what determines if a tire ends up in a landfill or in a recycled use in the US, it's only 2 things. Does the state have rules on disposal for that tire, meaning how easy is it for somebody to put it in a landfill? And 2, does the state restrict how recycled rubber can be used? Does it place restrictions on athletic fields, surfaces, rubber modified asphalt? I should say the result of that is you get funny things where states that are not known for being very environmental, like Texas, they recycle or reuse about 80% of their tires, versus states like California, which has an environmental reputation that in many ways is well-deserved, they actually recycle less than half of their tires and have the highest landfilling rate of tires in the entire country, outside of very sparsely populated states like Montana and Wyoming. So essentially what to know about US laws, my central thesis is most of these were passed between 1988 and 1991. They've rarely, if ever, been touched since then, and they're outdated. They were built to manage the flow of tires, not to encourage tires to actually be recycled. And although every state has its own unique circumstances, there's a handful of themes that are true for all of the states. The laws are outdated. They were designed for flow, not for higher use. About 36 states in the US collect tire fees, but they divert the overwhelming amount of those to non-tire related issues. Most of the state fees have rarely been adjusted, the most common being $1. And I don't think I have to tell anybody that $1 now doesn't buy the same thing it did 35 years ago. And then most of the states, which relates back to those pictures I showed you, it's too easy for low-end either haulers or processors to get in the game. They have virtually nothing on the line, which means they operate until they cause a mistake or they get caught, and then they leave the market and go to another state, and there's no ability for the state to recoup its costs. So one of those photos, for instance, that I showed at the very beginning, the cleanup of that site was about $650,000. They had a bond with the state for $10,000, and that was all that the state is able to recover from that operator. So how are we doing this? Old laws. Every single picture here is from 1988. I don't think I have to tell anybody that what worked in 1988 and was popular then isn't necessarily so now. So if our laws haven't been touched since 1998, why are we still operating on them today? The challenge is, in the US, like many markets I assume, the tire recycling industry is just too small to have the influence to get the attention. So how we've been trying to change this is by bringing a whole value chain approach. It means we're bringing the manufacturers, the retailers, the tire recyclers, our strategic partners, including people who buy our products, and then even the local and state governments who have a key role in both making sure they clean up tires that don't go in the system, and then often are users of recycled rubber products. Transparency in the system. On the left is what most states require from tire haulers and tire processors. Not only is it a paper manifest system, but it is often a manifest system that people fill out by hand. I've personally talked to one state where the regulator says they only have 6 people on staff to cover the entire state. The majority of their time is to try to understand the handwriting from manifest systems that people submit. If you can't trace the tires, then there is no accountability. And so only one state currently is implementing e-manifest systems, electronic systems, that's California. But the truth is, any hauler or recycler of a certain size already uses electronic systems because our customers demand it from us. So why aren't we using electronic systems with the states? Diversion of fees. I pulled 2 states because I wanted to make it clear this was not an issue with liberal states or conservative states. Unfortunately, in the US, this might be one of the few bipartisan things we still agree on, is taking tire funds and using them for unrelated issues. In Washington state, a very liberal state, they take 98% of the fees and use them on unrelated issues. In Florida, over 90% and use them on unrelated issues. Where we've seen movement in getting this changed is these fees, in addition to paying for regulators, paying for enforcement, these are also supposed to fund local efforts by local governments to stop illegal dumping, to increase enforcement, and to clean up stockpiles. So we've started bringing those local governments to the table to lobby the state government to return that money, because ultimately they have to clean up those tires one way or another, and it's the state who's taking money out of their pocket and forcing them to use other recycling fees to clean up tires. And then finally, the last 2 is markets and education. And on the market side, there's both a private sector need and a public sector need. One, the private sector needs to do more on research and development for products. The vast majority, I mean, because we're a thin margin business, we're essentially a commodity business, most of our money is put back into operations. We need to put back more into product development, and we need to develop deeper relationships with manufacturers and retailers, one of which I'll talk a little bit more, bringing those parties to the table so that they're not just generating waste, they're also finding homes for that material. And then on the public side, it's again taking that tire money back and putting it into local grants or incentives to use that material and to help spur market development. And then on the education side, for the US, we spent the last 10 years focused on health concerns around the use of recycled rubber. We had 2 big reports that came out, one from the US EPA, one from the California EPA. It has essentially laid the issue to bed from a scientific standing, but we still have a lot of work to do with educating the public, because the media's incentive is to go out there and tell scary stories, to tell bad stories. No one wants to go out there and say, that story we ran 5 years ago about how your playground might be killing you. Just kidding, that's not true, everything's fine. So we have to do it. As an industry, we often operate like we're business to business because we are, but we really have to be talking to end consumers. So it's not all doom and gloom. It is challenging because we're working through 50 state systems. There's not essentially a federal mechanism for this, but we have seen recent progress made, programs being overhauled, fees being returned. Connecticut passed the first tire EPR law in the United States, extended producer responsibility. There's a lot of questions on whether one state operating in a vacuum can make that work, but we will see. But so there has been a lot of progress, and all of this has taken place in the last 2 years in the US. And then Canada, just briefly, we operate in British Columbia and Alberta. What I will say is the Canadian system, which is either all EPR or stewardship organizations, it is very, very good at collecting every single tire that goes out into the marketplace. Where it struggles is on end markets. And they filled that struggle on end markets in 2 ways. One, some provinces stockpile a lot of material, which is a very short-term solution because eventually it has to go somewhere. And 2, they export a lot of material to the US. And I think for many years that was fine, but I probably don't have to tell anyone here, if your market is depending on export or the US as a reliable trading partner, you probably have problems these days. So the Canadian system has strengths, but also some challenges. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about broader initiatives from the Trump administration and what they mean to tire recycling. This one, good, bad, somewhere in between, with the exception of if the president puts tariffs back between the US and Canada, because we operate on both sides of the border, most of it is we're in the same place as most industries. We don't have a ton of direct exposure, but we have a lot of indirect exposure. If the price of tires are going up, does that mean consumers hold on to their tires longer, which means fewer end-of-life tires come into the flow? On the sustainability side, it might be good, but from a business side, it might create challenges. Certainly, even though we source a lot of materials from domestic companies, but somewhere in that supply chain, whether it's blades in equipment manufactured here in Italy or it's packaging manufactured in China, there is exposure in there somewhere, and those costs are going to get passed on to us. And then everything else, it's too early to see if the president's focus on domestic manufacturing will benefit us, but certainly by our very nature, we produce a material that is always going to be local. And although we use a lot of that material, we also supply a lot of manufacturers in the US. Lower corporate taxes will be better, but it's unclear if all of that will offset the economic uncertainty that's been created, higher costs of living, and then obviously a pullback on sustainability. And with this administration, really, maybe weaponizing is too strong of a word, but a focus on asking corporations to pull back on their own sustainability goals as well. So what is Liberty doing? Shameless self-promotion, so I'll run through this quickly. Only coast-to-coast recycler in the US. We collect tires, we process them, we manufacture our own products, and then we also sell manufactured feedstock to other manufacturers in the US. All 50 states, Western Canada, 56 facilities. We have a utilization rate of 81%, and what that means is if you combine energy recovery and material recovery, that's our rate, which is slightly above the national average. It works out to be about half material, half energy. As I mentioned, what I really like is that from a narrative perspective is that we don't just produce our own products, we supply domestic manufacturers with a recycled content that displaces virgin material. And because of the complexity and size of the marketplace, it also means we have over 50,000 customers, which from an advocacy perspective, what I was talking about before means we need to do a better job of getting those voices to the table, not just Liberty. So these are some of the products we create, very heavily in the landscaping, playgrounds, lawn and garden, but we also make asphalt mixes as well as consumer products. That's actually a picture from a Walmart shelf. These are some of the manufacturers in the US we support: rubberized sound barriers, construction materials like roofing tiles. Virtually every domestic floor mat in the US that is manufactured is supplied with our crumb rubber. So that the matting on the bottom is 100% recycled rubber that goes into it. And then for all commercial gyms in the US, almost all of them use this rubber flooring as well, which we supply to other manufacturers. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we do supply tire-derived fuel to mostly cement kilns and pulp and paper facilities. The good thing is both the US EPA and states like Washington State recognize it as a significant emissions saving because we're displacing primarily coal. Walmart, I'll talk about two companies. Walmart is one of my favorite stories because Walmart, you may not know, they have service centers attached to many of their stores. That means Walmart as a company is actually one of the largest tire generators in the US. However, we both service them from picking up their tires, but over the years, we've been able to grow our line of products that are sold in Walmart stores. So now 25% of the tires we collect from Walmart, which represents several million, are actually sold back into Walmart as recycled rubber products to their consumers, both in stores and on Walmart.com. And we're experimenting with other things, like we've started repaving Walmart parking lots with rubber modified asphalt, which is currently in the testing phase to see if it holds up to their current blend. That way we could actually utilize, I should actually say a fun part of that story is we also used recycled motor oil from their service centers in those projects as well. So taking their waste products and both putting it into the retail side of the store, but also the actual infrastructure of the stores, so they're a true partner in sustainability and circularity. My other favorite one, which I think we might have launched this even since this year, is with Trek, which is the bicycle manufacturer. If you don't know them, they're one of the top 3 bicycle manufacturers in the world. Up until we launched a partnership with them recently, there was no nationwide accessible way to recycle bicycle tires in the US. So you sort of had this absurdity of a very sustainable mode of transportation or recreation, where when your tires went to their end of life, they were landfilled universally. But so we started with a pilot project in 2023, and now we've launched any Trek store. Consumers can bring in their tires for free and drop them off for recycling, and they actually ship the tires to us in the boxes that their bikes are shipped to them, so they're reusing their cardboard material as well. And then we also do cleanups for local governments, both amnesty days where people can drop off tires for free, and then cleanups for stockpiles and illegal dumps. These are some of the education campaigns we've launched to educate consumers and policymakers. And then I know microplastics in synthetic turf fields is a huge issue here in Europe. We took the model that was originally tested in Europe, but before the crumb rubber infill phase out was put in place, unfortunately, and we've funded those fields in the US as well to try to get ahead of that issue and bring the level of migration of crumb rubber in fields down to a very, very small amount. And then, of course, we're the only tire recycler in the US who publishes the ESG report because we want to be transparent and measurable to our customers since we are their sustainability partners. So what I would say is it's always been a challenging time in the US in the tire recycling industry. There's no federal mandate to drive recycling on any commodity. But health concerns are largely behind us. Markets are expanding. We're seeing more strategic partnerships, and state governance of the programs is, if slowly, improving. So what I would say in summation is, it's not easy, but it's working, and the system's getting better in the US. And with that, I will pause. Thank you.
Thanks, Stratton. That was really interesting. Thanks very much. Has anybody got any questions, please? Gianpaolo.
My understanding is that today we were talking about how to increase retreading, reusing, and remanufacturing before to start to recycling, grinding, pyrolysis, or what else. You were just talking about the final part, the recycling. How is there a way, is there a filter before this final treatment of end-of-life tire to understand if some of the tires that are coming to you can be reused, remanufactured before to be destroyed? In other words, if I have a fleet, I have 100 vehicles, I wake up one day and I say, come to pick up all of my tires because I don't want them anymore.
Yes.
Do you grind them and burn them, shred them, or do you check them if there is a different way of treat them before?
We do actually check them and sort for tires that can either be reused or retreaded. In the US, much like Europe, it's typically commercial fleet vehicles that are being retreaded, but we do, and this was only something that rolled out in the last few years, but we do actually check the tires before we recycle.
Okay, so
them.
in case the tire is retreadable, you work like a casing seller, casing supplier to retreaders, to the market back?
It's yes, but I will say it's highly geographic dependent based on how far the transportation would be and the transportation costs.
Okay.
I'd say the other thing we do is we service most of the stations that still do commercial retreading in the US. So when they do have end-of-life tires, but we also take their buffings from the retreading process as well so that those go into a sustainable home.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Nope. Okay, well, Stratton, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So our next speaker is Giuseppina Carnimeo, the CEO of Ecopneus, which is the largest of the Italian EPR organisations. And she's going to give us an update on what Ecopneus are up to and about the Italian market. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you for this opportunity. I've prepared a short presentation about Ecopneus, who is Ecopneus, what Ecopneus does, but I think that it's more important to comment the previous presentation and the first panel, very interesting in the market because we represent the EPR scheme in Italy, but then I would like to concentrate about what before said, the industry and the retreating industry, because we are here to speak about retreading. Okay, so just a quick presentation about us, about Ecopneus. Ecopneus is the main consortium founded by the main tire producers and importers operating in Italy, and it was found by law just to fulfill the obligation defined by a legislative decree 152 of the 2006 that introduced the so-called extended producer responsibility in the tire sector. So Ecopneus was founded by 6 major members. It's a no-profit organization, and we manage about 43% of the market share because we have the obliged to manage the a quantity of end-of-life tire equal to the put on the market of our members in the previous solar year. During the year, we, as we said before, Ecopneus was founded in 2009, and during the following year, we cover more or less 52 members today. That is the key figures in the last year, in 2024. We manage in terms of collection, transport and treatment, and recycling, 168,000 tons of ELT end-of-life tires. These results by satisfying a collection request by Punto Workshop, Tires Workshop, 45,000 of collection requests. And these results of these activities through all the national territory, covering all the provinces in Italy, so not only north or central Italy, but we cover all the national territory. And as also in the other year, also in 2024, we get more than our low target, because we have to set a goal defined by law. Okay, as I said before, we have to manage quantities equal the put on the market by our owners in the previous solar, but we went over this target, but not because we are a good boy or because we are the first, but because law says that. We have to go over the target because we have to guarantee the continuity of the service, because we manage waste. Waste can't wait. Okay, no, wait, don't pass or don't cover. We can't do it. We have to guarantee the continuity of its service. Why or how we manage, we operate, and that is the main ways or approaches we use to reach the results I showed before. Operational excellence, so as I say, collection nationwide through all the national territory. A good network of treatment operators, collector operators, treatment plants, and it's very important to create the network, to create the liability among all the operators. Operated with a full digital traceability. Traceability is a key word. Also in the first panel, we the priest spoke about traceability in terms of transparency, in terms of knowing the condition, the composition of the tire, and if you know in which condition is the tire, you can decide how better treat the tire in terms of retreating, in terms of recycling, in terms of recovery, and more you know about the tire in terms of traceability, digitalization, RFD, or data information about the history of the tire, better you can treat and manage the tire. An important role for us also is the promotion of these of the recycling of the environmental performance and the value of the material, because just yesterday I said that we have to move from the waste management approach to a material management approach. Okay, EPR scheme respond and oblige our waste management, but the real goal is not the collection, is not the treatment, but is to enhancing the environmental performance, is the recycling and respecting the waste hierarchy, okay? Because the European Union said, okay, the collection is a tool for recycling, for valorization and material, for developing a market. Research and development, so partnership with university, with laboratory, research institution, in order to find new opportunities and new challenges also. Sustainable engagement. Speak about, or try to open the dialogue with all the stakeholders involved in the sustainable management of the tire sector. And first of all, the policy contribution, so dialogue with the institution, with the legislator, also to cover those lack of regulation that before, we know that there are some lack regulation. So we have to promote, to speak with the decision maker and support the correct valorization of this product, because I speak about product, not waste. Also, when it became a waste, but it is a product, okay, material. Contest regulatory framework in Italy, okay, it was a long legislative process, start from the ban on send ELT to landfills. So in 2006, we have the oblige, as I said before, to manage the end-of-life tire. The first ministerial decree in 2011, and then another revision that better define obligation. An important degree is number 78 in 2020, about the no longer qualified of the granulated rubber. So is considered as a raw secondary material for new application. And the last one is the new Article 178 quarter of the Legislative Decree 152 regarding the regulation of the so-called marketplace, so the sell by commercial electronic platform. Okay, that is very important to cover the so-called free riding, because you know how many tires are put on the market, sold by this marketplace. There is a long process, extensive process, many ministerial decree. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. There are many limits. There are something that are wrong in terms of monitoring, control, maybe regulation about yes, how to guarantee competitiveness, but at the same time effectiveness, because it's not so easy that the two aspects go together, no? Because the European legislation on EPR scheme, or extended producer responsibility, asks for competitiveness, okay? But in this area, it's not so easy guarantee so much subject obliged to manage ELT, at the same time guarantee effectiveness. Nowadays, we know that it's not so. Okay, so maybe these, and we work with the environmental ministry, with the institution, just to cover the lack, to cover the limits, and try to improve our legislation, also in terms to recognize the importance of to respect hierarchy, we have to say that Italian legislation doesn't consider use tyre, retreatable tyre. In our legislation, we only read end-of-life tyre. Okay, so we have to enforce, to promote that there is a hierarchy, there is a material to support, to recognize. Also, when we speak about the green public procurement, okay, in Italy there is the obliged to cover with 30% of the public procurement with green procurement, but local administration, Italian public administration doesn't respect, doesn't fulfill with these obligations. So we have to promote, and also very important in Italy is the information, the formation, the giving the skills, the competencies, the information about the opportunities to do this, no, and the benefits, environmental benefits, economical benefits, social benefits, because public administration don't know that with environmental choices you also can have economical benefits, okay, and they don't know that. Our role is also support and spread this information and this awareness. Environmental policy in action, okay, the key point of our legislation, I want to take attention to the last bullet point when I said also before, traceability, compliance, and transparency. And only in my presentation, we say always traceability, compliance, transparency, Ecopneus respect these aspects. But in Italy, we say there is the ABC, okay, l'ABC, come dire. Not because we are the best one, but because we have to do in this way. There is the law that asks us to do with or to operate with traceability, compliance, and transparency. And everybody in this sector, in the APR scheme, have to be or operator with this approach. So for me, it's so natural to be or to operate in this way. And I find also, I'm asking why I have to say I operating with this way. Why? It could be natural for what I represent, Ecopneus represent. Ecopneus is an EPR scheme, is a consortium, it's a no-profit consortium. We doesn't do business. We are a bridge between a business model, a business world. The producer of tire, importers, retreadable, there is a business world, and the world of recycling, retreating, recover. These are business model in the industry. EPR consortium is a link, is a bridge, have to cover, and also the operating arm of the environmental responsibility of the producer, yes. But for me, it's natural to be and to follow with these aspects. There is, I think, also you know why tyres recover structured APR approach, just for the spatial waste. They represent a spatial waste stream, so it's very important to manage the risk if they are not well managed, so we know that. The valuable raw material, as we said before, so I think that our natural requirements or the importance to manage this flow and this waste stream in a structural ways, because EPR ensure efficiency, control, and above all, value creation, because now we are speaking about value creation. So when I said at the beginning of my presentation that we have to move from a waste management approach to a material management approach. And there is just because I want to be a quickly presentation, but I think I would like to thank David for this opportunity, for this conference, because I think it is very interesting, the first panel and the picture of the retreating sector and the retreating market, the needs they have, the needs of support to promote, and also the benefits, and we have the role and the we have to promote and maybe to diffuse, to spread these benefits. So I would like to thank you, and I think. Knowing and listening what the market and the sector needs help us to develop the right not solution, but also answer to all the ways to go to the different stakeholders for manage this area and this sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Giuseppe. That was much appreciated. Are there any questions for Giuseppe before she briefs? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the final speaker today is Arthur Wagner from Regom, the French manufacturer of sorting equipment, and Arthur's going to talk us through the benefits of his sorting equipment. So, Arthur, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, I'm Arthur Wagner, the founder and CEO of Regom, and also I manage 2 collection and sorting sites in France where we collect for AZuR since 25 years now. We collect 50,000 tons of used tires every year. And this is where the project starts 10 years ago, because we've got an issue with one of our guys who went to retirement, and we lost all the knowledge of this guy regarding the sorting, grading, and reuse of tires. So we start to think about a system to maximize the valorization and the outflows of used tires, as Liberty was talking before. And this system, we initially start in our 2 companies, the 2 green arrows, where we do collection for AZuR. The red one are the one where we do transport. We are now based in Europe, also in the US. We've got a company there, Regom Inc., and soon in Japan, where we also have a line going. Here is a site where we do the research and development every day, and where we also collect and process 20,000 tons of used tires. So it's a machine for the real life, I would say, usage. I'm going to show you a quick video. It's way better than my English to understand what we do. It works like...
Welcome to Regom's Technical Showcase, where we unveil how our tire identification and sorting machine operates and streamlines the recycling process. Before the process begins, our team configures the sorting lists provided by the client using our specialized software. The sorting parameters are customized according to the desired recycling applications, determining the path each tire will follow based on its unique characteristics. Once this step is done, the process can start. Tires are mass unloaded into a debulking hopper or can be unloaded by hand on a conveyor according to customer needs. This initial stage efficiently handles large volumes of tires, preparing them for the next sorting process. The tires pass through the pre-sorting stage, where contaminants like disc brakes, inner tube, colored tire are removed from the line, and an operator aligns the tires to ensure they are correctly positioned for processing. This singulating and alignment stage is crucial for maintaining the efficiency and accuracy of the subsequent identification process. Inside the machine, advanced technology comes into action. Each tire is weighed, measured, and captured by a camera to identify the information on the flank of each tire. Thanks to the artificial intelligence developed in-house, this identification process captures all the characteristics of the tire: the brand, model, dimensions, remaining tread depth, weight, speed index, load index, and DOT. All the necessary data to determine the tire's suitability for various recycling applications and quality level. Based on the data gathered, the machine proposes an application for each tire, depending on its characteristics. This is the sorting stage, where tires are directed towards their next phase in the recycling process. For tires that are unsuitable for reuse, the process continues with automatic evacuation to the shredder. This shredding stage efficiently reduces the tires to tire chips for material recovery. For tires that are suitable for reuse or retreading, human inspection is carried out. Operators verify the data displayed on the sorting tables, where additional information can be viewed on a touchscreen, ensuring that only the best tires proceed to the next phase. Once sorted, the tires are transported to their respective batches, whether for shredding, reuse, or retreading, each following the path defined by the initial configuration. The final step involves analyzing the day's tire production through our reporting software. This system provides comprehensive data on the number of tires processed, their destinations, and overall productivity, ensuring continuous improvement of our operations.
So, as I said, we start 10 years ago for our own usage only, because we had a lack of employees and everything, and brick after brick, we developed a complete solution from the debulking, the alignment. In this case, you have seen someone checking for disc brakes and stuff like that, but we've got some customer who align automatically the tire in front of our machine. We develop everything in our own, the IA, the automatism, PLC, software, everything according to this very specific industry. We are 12 in France to do this. There are 5 in the Netherlands, so nobody wants to do that. It's a very small market. Now we've got 12 lines running in Europe, so we process more than 20 million tires every year. So we enlarge our database, and in front of our machine, you maybe have seen our antennas, 2 green things just before. It is for the RFID. It was a conference it was yesterday where we were talking about RFID tags that the manufacturers are placing in tire at the moment. So we are developing also this for the GDSO and the direct connection to their database, because once again, we are the only one to process tires individually before whatever reuse or shredding application. Thanks to that, in Europe, we open new market. In our plant, we have now specific orders from granulators or pyrolyzer who are looking for specific chemical component or silicate content in tires. Thanks to the brand and the model and the remaining tread, we know how many silicate we've got, and some chemical components also for specific modeling application in contact with human skin, for example. So we do the complete engineering to make it happen, because the machine by itself, it's nothing, because we have to process a tire every 3 seconds and then to address them according to criteria. I just said we process a tire every 3 seconds, so roughly 1,000 per hour. The benefit mainly, it is cost saving, because it reduces the number of operators that we need, but also it improves the quality of the grading, because we can enlarge the number of criteria and the number of outflows for reuse, resell, pyrolysis, whatever. We do a lot of research and development. I just spoke about the RFID. Also, we are developing a laser scanner, like the one in an X-ray, sorry, like the one in the airport, to detect the contaminant before the shredder. Because if we shred some disc brake, something will happen, for sure. But we are doing research and development only for our dedicated and specific industry, the used one, for the tires. Where we are at the moment, it is, in our opinion, in the middle. We went from the orange phase, no data, very hard work, shortage of labor. We are in the middle, in between, and we are moving for the next decades to the green and right side, thanks to the RFID, but it will take years to have 100% of RFID tags tires on the market. So we are in between to create data and valorize every outflows as on this chart. Thank you very much. And if you've got questions,
any questions for Arthur, please? Stratton.
So you said you have 12 facilities. I'm curious, have all those facilities been built from scratch, or have you retrofitted existing recycling facilities?
both. We had, I would say, 4 from scratch and 8 where we reuse even the previous convoying system and everything. And I've got 4 full-time engineers at Regom who do engineering. So we do all the calculation to manage the process and all the number of tires. And when we do the installation, we do not stop the production. A complete one, it's a full plan from the debulking to the distribution. It can last between 2 and 3 weeks, but we do it in parallel. And then at the last moment, we bypass and go into our line. So it depends. It's clearly very adaptive because once again, we do everything in our own. So we manage the technology, the conveyor, everything. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to ask a question? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Arthur. Very much appreciated. Cheers. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the Future of Retreading and Recycling Conference. We're finishing a little bit early, but don't go away. Very shortly there'll be a cocktail outside. At 5:30 we'll be continuing with the Recircle Awards trophy giving. So please stay for that. And we'll see you back in here in about half an hour after we've changed the room around and put some new furniture in ready for the award ceremony. Thank you very much.